What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Saturday, or if you're watching this on a day that's not Saturday, I hope that day is going well for you too. So, catching up with you folks, hope everything's going well. I've been playing with the tune on the black car, not really messing so much with Revlon, just a little bit. But topic for tonight, if you had a wish list for FCA, Mopar in general, what would that wish list encompass? And I also want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up too. I had the opportunity to play with a good buddy of mine, Ray. I got the opportunity to play with his absolutely gorgeous Frostbite Blue 1320. So I want to give you some of my impressions on the 1320. I got to spend a couple hours with that car. Mike Corleone's in the house. Good evening. I got the arm flex. I like it. So I'm going to give you guys my impressions on that car. Also, walk you through some of the things that I was thinking about. You know, some of the conversation that we had, along with a couple of other of my buddies. You know how this stuff goes, man. The topics for this show are really based on conversations with friends of mine. So, check it out. I want to jump in the middle of this 1320 real quick. So, Ray picked up the 1320 about 3 days ago. Car only had 250, 260 miles on it when I got a chance to check it out. We were going to take it to the drag strip for some as-delivered passes and wanted to see what the car would run just in literally as-delivered form. Stock air pressure, stock front, rear, Nexans, with the passenger seat in. It's a rear seat delete car. Want to see what it would run. Unfortunately, the track was not running on Friday night, but we had the opportunity to have a little bit of fun with the car. And so for basically the next 2 hours and about half a tank of gas, between him and I, we probably laid down somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12 or 15 passes with this car in an undisclosed location. And I'm here to tell you, I might have a new favorite car. Not obviously, you know, present company excluded, of course. But here's the thing. That car is so much freaking fun on the street. I can't really put it into words. It has been a long time. It's been since Shalandra that I was able to have that kind of fun on the street and not have anything really to worry about in the process. So a couple of things about the 1320. First of all, I love the new Uconnect layout, the 2019-2020 cars with the full time slip, not just 0 to 60 miles an hour. I mean a full time slip. That was really cool to see. I love the dyno feature. That's been a thing for a while, but just all in all, that car was so much fun. And again, with both of us in the car, you know, both of us are over 200 pounds. We were clicking off, I think it was 12 2s and 12 3s pretty much all night. Ray ended up getting a 12-1 out of the car. So that's on the, you know, the Uconnect setup, you know, the drag pages. But here's the cool thing about that car. It was, even in as-delivered form with as-delivered air pressure, which was 34 pounds, the car would still pretty much hook on the street. We would basically tack it up to about $2,000, 1,800, and then kind of roll into the throttle. And if it didn't really break loose, because again, this isn't a controlled environment, but on concrete, it would maybe chirp the tires a little bit. But the fun thing about it was the 1-2 shift, where it would just bark the hell out of that second gear shift. So much fun. So again, love you, Ray, man. We had a blast. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you Friday. I really appreciate the opportunity for the seat time with the car. I got to tell you, guys, if you haven't seen that Frostbite Blue, it is absolutely criminally pretty. At night, during the day, it's kind of like Redline Red, where it kind of changes colors a little bit from light to dark. So, at any rate, you know, just wanted to share that experience with you. We had a blast with that car, and again, I have got to say it is probably my new favorite car. And you might go, well, it's not as fast as a Hellcat or a Red Eye or a Demon, but save it. Because on the street, we were able to do stuff with that car that you simply cannot do unless you're running serious meat in the back of a Hellcat, you're not going to be able to have the fun that you can have with a 1320 on the street. There's always going to be somebody faster, but if you're having a ball, you don't even, that's not even on your radar. If you're having fun, fast doesn't necessarily mean fun. I got about 3,240 pounds worth of proof of that sitting literally right behind me. So, by the way, I would have loved to be able to put this, to put Foxy up against Old Blue. I don't know what we're going to call that car, but obviously I'm not on a tire, and that 1320 would have eaten my lunch. But the fact of the matter is that the fun factor was there. And to be able to compare a 1320 with Foxy is about the highest praise that I can give any car. When it comes to just flat out laugh, I mean, you got two grown men acting like a couple of juvenile delinquents in this car, laughing every single time. Yes, you could have launched the car and it'd break loose a little bit. Ah! You know, like we're on like total non-prep situation, the whole deal. But anyway, I digress. We had so much fun with that thing, and I can't wait to see what that bad boy ends up running. I know that, again, in the heat, in the funk of it all, because it's actually raining right now. I'm looking over my shoulder like you can see this. It's actually raining right now, low pressure, all that crap. He was still able to damn near run 11s with that thing, you know, solo. So, yeah, I got to tell you, again, a lot of fun, and I've got to join the camp of you just didn't know what you were missing. I just didn't know what I was missing with that 1320. But let me check in with you guys real quick. Let's see. I just had a hair fly in my mouth. Seafeld James is in, thumbs up. Eric Taylor saying, what's up, you Mason? What's up, Eric? Samuel Jackson saying, yo, Mason, got the arm flex. I like it. What's up, man? Mark the Mark saying, Professor Mason, what's up, brother? Love from Chicago, man. I love Chicago. I was there February last year. Freaking love Chicago. Story 1328, Professor B. Mason. I am heading to Rocky Mountain Drag Week 2.0 tomorrow morning. I like it. Good luck, brother. Cody Warren's got the 2 up. I like it. Say, what's up, brother? Adam Johnson saying, I wish they moved the plants from Canada to the U.S. Oh, talking about the topic. Yeah. Yeah, the Canada to U.S. thing, I don't know. Well, they're doing a pretty good job up in Canada, but it would be nice to have some more USA influence on that. I mean, what's weird about that is that the engines are made in Mexico. The car is assembled in Canada and marketed in the United States. I don't know. I guess it's all technically America's. Adam's agreeing with Kobe. Destroyer saying, love my 1320, glad you got to try one. Yes, no, for sure, man. Listen, I had a freaking ball getting to play with that car, man, and I can tell you this, and even he and I were talking about this, Ray and I were talking about this, Ray, he will actually drive that car. He will actually go out and play and enjoy that car more than the Demons that he's owned, than the Hellcats that he's owned. This is a car that you can actually get out, take it out of the toy box, play with it like a Tonka truck, put it back in the toy box, and it's there every time. You don't have to have parental supervision, so to speak, if that makes any sense. It's just so much fun. And look, it's not like it will go from zero to take you to jail fast, real fast, but it's not that super weird, scary thing. It's all about the launch. It's all about that 1-2, that 2-3, the shift, and especially we got 2 people in the car because whoever's riding is watching this live time slip, as it goes through. So you launch the car, you're waiting for the 60-foot, waiting for the 330-foot. I mean, it's just, I can't tell you how much fun that is. And of course, it's all predicated on how much tire spin did it get? How was the launch? How did it feel? All of that is part of that experience. And it's, again, you can't do that in a car that won't dead hook, right? You can't do that in a car that's just going to try to light the tires up, especially going to haze the tires through third gear like Revlon does. Don't get me wrong, it's fun, but damn, is it even more fun when you can literally just go out and play with it over and over and over and over and over and not have to worry about it ever letting go on you. I don't know, just so much fun. Adam saying stick shift or nothing at all, dude. Yeah, this one, I used to bracket race this car. It's a 5-speed. In fact, the World Class T5 in this thing needs synchros. So, yeah, gonna have to jump on that. Captain Scouts checking in saying, yo, be catching my first live chat. Well, thanks. Welcome to the party. I'm stoked. I love your channel. Thanks for it all. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out with us. CFL James saying, wait till you hit 500 miles. You can use the drag mode. I use the 305 45 17s, and for the savings versus the Hellcat, it's super car. I love mine. So check this out. We were actually talking about that. We were just going, dude, can we just go drive around the Beltway or the Loop? I don't know how many times would it take to actually get this car to 500 miles. But yeah, certainly looking forward to it. Definitely a lot of fun, man. And like I say, does it need more power? You know, on a drag strip, you could argue that point, but for what it is on the street, for what we were doing, it was the perfect amount of power. Because here's the thing, to get that car to launch right on concrete at factory, again, remember guys, we were running this car in as delivered form. The car was originally in New Mexico. It still had the New Mexico sticker on it, still had the inventory tag on the windshield. So this is in literally as delivered form, no prep whatsoever. And in that form, the car was still a bit of a challenge to launch. And I mean, we're modulating, we're going, okay, how are we going to do this thing? We're going to, just step into it? Or are we going to wait till is it going to be a cadence thing? Are we going to do like a staged throttle progression deal? So anyway, we're strategizing the whole time. And that's something you can do you can't do that with the Hellcat. It's just going to light the tires up. But with this car, it's just the right amount of power where if you don't get it right on the street, it's going to light the tires up and it's going to kind of wreck your pass. And so we're going, okay, we got to remember, okay, this isn't a Hellcat. We're not on a track. We got to do this. We got to do that. And so anyway, it was just so much fun. I mean, I can't stress how much fun that car was on the street. And again, if you take the thing to the drag strip, you throw a drag pack on it, you do this, that, and everything else to it. Look, everybody's going to want more power when traction is no longer an issue, when it's basically, on a chain and rails. I mean, at that point, yeah, you want all the power you can get, but with that 1320, this is the cool thing that I discovered about the 1320 that maybe I knew about the 390 cars, 392 cars in general. I just maybe had forgotten about it. But the funnest part about that car was the ability to learn, and it didn't feel altogether different than being in the Hellcat when the track prep was maybe not perfect and you're really trying to work on your runs or work on your launch for your runs. It made for a great training platform. And that was the other thing I was going to really kind of focus on, is that if you can get that thing dialed in on the street and really be able to play with it and have fun with it, then everything you do at the drag strip is going to be 10 times easier than if you didn't have that experience behind you. So again, super awesome car. I loved it. Mark's checking and saying, if the Challenger is discontinued, they better bring back the CUDA. It's pretty badass to see it return. Sure it won't be under Plymouth, but it'll still be Mopar nonetheless. So here's the thing. Let's talk about that. Let's go ahead and get into the topic, and we'll get back to the 1320. Of course, we can talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. But in getting to the actual what's going to happen kind of conversation. So we are now, and this is kind of where I was going to go with this. So we're coming into the second week of March. What the hell? We're coming to the second week of September. Obviously, with the COVID thing really hitting hard in March, we had about 3 months of downtime with the plant. And so this year's kind of a wash, but the 2021 model year starts basically next week, on the 17th or 18th of next week. And with that, I got to thinking about it. This is something we were talking about. What would be cool to see FCA release? And because of the COVID issue, will the LX platform, the LA or whatever platform you want to call it, or whichever one's your favorite, will that old Mercedes platform keep moving forward? Or will there be some kind of a revamp? Now, the way that it sits now, you're looking at 2023 as the last model year that platform will be licensed. So, in other words, FCA has licensed that platform from Mercedes-Benz through the 2023 model year, and it would be 2024 that you would expect to see something new. And so basically, right about now would be the time for all of the development to go into full swing. This is when everybody's getting together and saying, look, you know, we've got basically 4 or 5 years to get this sorted out. We've got to have tooling and, you know, everything sorted. What can we make? And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, you know, would I want to see, or here's the other alternative to that, would you want to see the LX platform carried even further on than it is now? The argument is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And FCA with Dodge has placed themselves in a very good spot marketing wise with those big body cars. They do extremely well. And to that point, that you need to look no further than 2 areas. Number 1, total sales volume. But number 2, and maybe more to the point, at least here in the States, the resale value of the Dodge products, the Charger, the Challenger, is strong, to say the least. So because of that, you're looking at what could more or less be argued as, not only is if it's not broke, don't fix it, but if you change anything, it's going to break the mold that you already have. But a lot of folks want to see a car like the Cuda maybe come to fruition. The problem is that nobody really knows what a Cuda would be. I mean, I guess it should be implied, right? Like there's a certain intuitive physics that revolves around saying Cuda that would insinuate that the car would be smaller. Well, maybe you could make the LX platform in some ways smaller, incorporate the Cuda name, still keep the same basic feel, just not have as large of a car. It would probably shed about 200 pounds in the process, maybe even 300. The same power plants could apply because you would be carrying over more or less the same platform, and then just keep that moving forward. Again, extending the LX platform, albeit in a modified configuration, which, quite honestly, was what was discussed already. They were talking about for 2023 and moving forward, they were talking about a modified LX platform and just continuing the Charger and the Challenger name, which, you know, wouldn't affect me too much. But keeping those cars in the same groove, I guess what I was looking at was, okay, well, where can FCA compete? Would it be in the small car market? Would it be in the crossover? Would it be in the SUV market, like the new Grand Wagoneer, for example? I'd like to get y'all's opinion on that, because I'm a little bit torn. I like the way that it looks from a certain modern perspective, but if you're going to call something a Grand Wagoneer, and you've been, I don't know, selling and marketing yourself as an old school, you know, traditional hot rod format type of a manufacturer, I was just kind of hoping for a little bit more of a retro, kind of a cool looking Wagoneer. But that's not what happened. It's a great looking vehicle. But guys, I got to be honest with you. It looks just like the Expedition. I mean, if you look at it from just the right angle. But then again, if you look at any crossover, they all look the same too. And they're all kind of following the same recipe. You know, look, I get it. You know, a hamburger's a hamburger's a hamburger, but believe me, there's a difference between some, you know, crappy burger and something that you make at the house. It's, you know, I don't know, maybe it's the amount of love you put into it, but right now, it just looks like more of the same. A lot of like that processed, you know, drug this thing through the, I don't know, through the opinion pool, and it just doesn't seem to be resonating, I don't know, with the marketing theme. Although, if you look at it, and they're talking about the 5.7 being the main engine with e-torque and maybe, you know, a diesel variant, I think was mentioned. But anyway, no matter how you look at it, kind of a cool looking product. So that being said, you've also got the rest of the Jeep lineup to consider. For me, I'd like to see the Jeep with a V8. It doesn't have to be the 392. That's just, it doesn't need it. But a 5.7, well, that's a horse of a different color. And it doesn't even have to be the truck's 5.7. It can be the fixed runner 5.7 that the cars come with. Fixed runner length, talking about the intake manifold here. 370 or even 350 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque would be pretty sick in a vehicle of that weight and with that type of gearing. So anyway, just things to think about. Hang on a second. Hang on. Wait a minute. CFL, thank you very much. Appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you very much for the contribution. Asking, would you tune this car or would you leave it alone? Talking about the 1320. Man, I would leave it alone, and I'll tell you why. I wouldn't mess with that car because it is so fun the way that it sits. I think that taking that car in as delivered form and going out and shooting for a number would be far and away more fun. And I'll also take that a step further. The way that the car does shift, I mean, it shifted at 6250 every single time. It's a little bit more optimized than some of the cars that I've driven leading up to the 1320. So I've got to say that I think that car, regardless of what it's rated at, I think it's got a little bit hotter tune in it. I've never done a read file on it. But I can tell you that it felt a little stronger. It felt a little bit more crisp. Now, to that point though, the newer operating system is better than the one that was in the 15, 16, and maybe even into the 17s. With the revised cam timing and a couple of other things that I've noticed, it does run a little bit better, especially through the mid-range. So I've got to think that the way that the car sits now, I don't know that I'd be able to get much out of it, but I can tell you this, putting a drag pack on that thing, going out and seeing how deep into the 11s I could get that car in whatever conditions I was in, and maybe trying to shoot for a 10 in super, super low DA, I think would be a lot more fun than messing with the tune with it. But that's just my 2 cents, man. I really wouldn't, because I think the car was so much freaking fun the way that it sat. There wasn't really anything that I felt like I could do differently with that car that would improve upon it. That's how much I liked it. Sean E checking in saying a little nugget for the 5 liter. I appreciate that. 5.8 liter, I should say. Yeah, she's doing good, man. In fact, so I hooked up the wideband to the car. I've got an LM1 that I used to use for tuning a long time ago. It's basically tune validation. I didn't have it at the time when I took the car to the dyno. I'm going to make a couple of changes to the tune under wide open throttle. Doing some street validation and was kind of throwing some fuel at it just to check a couple of hypotheses, if you will, that I had. I'm going to pull some of that fuel out. I'm going to call it good with the AFR that it lands at, again, about 12.5. And that's it. She's going to be done. The car runs great, does everything the way that you would hope that it would. Cruises great, idles great, tip-in is like instant with this car. So she's done. I just, again, that's what I would have been doing leading up to, hanging out with, us all hanging out. The only problem was it started raining. Yeah. But thank you very much, man. And then Jermaine, man, thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution, my friend. Thank you. Didn't have a question with it. Hey, Kobe, man, thank you very much. Again, I like it. Got the fist bump. I like it. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate that. Thank you all very much for the support. It definitely goes to good use, because next on the list, we got to put shoes on Revlon. So that's going to be that is what is the next investment, because it's about to be boo season. Christian checking in and asking, I'm looking at my first sports car within the next couple of years. Really like the C7 Grand Sport and the Z06. Is the Z06 too much, or will I wish I had gotten it in the future? Which would I choose? If you're asking about the C7 Z06, no. The C7 Z06 is docile unless you break your foot off in it. It's all about budget, to be honest with you. You get both of them in an automatic, so that's a good thing. If you've got the funds, then I would suggest going with the Z06 each and every time. I wouldn't even mess with the C7. Unless it was a Grand Sport, I would definitely be looking at the Z06. I really like the Z06. In fact, one of my favorite cars to drive is the C7 Z06. It reminds me a lot of my my 99 Viper, the one with the heads and cam. 76239 is asking, what's more important, horsepower or torque? Well, torque is, because without torque, you won't have any horsepower. So horsepower is just a function of torque. It just depends on where you're going to make it. So, I mean, what part of the class do you want me to start with this one? Because this is, I mean, this is a weird thing because you have to have the torque to get you off the line, but without the horsepower, you basically, the car falls on its face. You want enough over rev. In other words, from your point of view, you want enough at the end of your power band to where it just doesn't nose over real hard. You want a power band that kind of comes up and reaches a peak and maybe flattens out a little bit before it drops off for a street car. Now, if you want a race car, you want something that just, you know, makes power until you hit valve flow. But the main thing is that you want a little bit of over rev on the back half of the track. At least you don't want to have the car nose over. So what I'll do is I will shorten up my shift points from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and maybe even 3 to 4, so that when that shift falls back, from your point of view, as the power range is being drug up, when it shifts and it falls back, I'm still in that nice, fat, chunky part of the torque range. I need that torque to keep the car accelerating. Now, when I get further down the track, what I'll do with my tune is I will extend the RPM out the back half of the track to take advantage of the horsepower. At that point, shifting is going to waste time. I'm going to miss time on the shift, number one. And number two, that's not peak power. That's peak torque. I need peak power on the back half of the track. I need peak RPM to take full advantage of the gear reduction that I've got going on through the transmission in the rear end. If I shift, then I lose my advantage with the gears. So that's the idea behind it. Horsepower you need for the back half of the track. Torque you need for the front portion of the track. Chris is asking, and what horsepower numbers can you realistically gain from a C7 and keep it in a, you know, man, to the rear tires, I would say you could probably easily walk at about 450 and keep it streetable. You know, 450, 455, maybe even 475, depending on how itchy you want to get with that cam. But that would be about the limit. This is on a Mustang dyno, by the way. That would be about the limit that I would want to see. Anything more than that, the car just gets to be a little bit rowdy. And listen, it's cool for about 15 minutes. It's fun. But you don't want to have a car that's loading up. You don't want to have a car that's a turd down low, which is another big problem with any of the LS and LT platforms. They love cams. I mean, they've got great intake options. You've got great cylinder heads. So cam's the limit, literally. I mean, you can put an obnoxiously big cam in those cars, and they just keep making power and power and power. But the problem is they lose drivability and they become real mushy. My Z06, my C5 Z06 was a little over cammed. And so on the highway, it was a riot. But down low, it was just, meh. It took away a lot of the punchiness of that car. And that's what sucked. And that car was not stock. Just had a little bit too much cam. Adam's checking in and saying, "What's up, B? How about the new, the new TA 392 coming now in wide body? About time. I mean, damn, the TA should have been a wide body road course. That, in fact, my argument when the TA was first released was, why was that car not wide body, and why was the Demon a wide body? It didn't make any sense to me. But the TA being wide body, I love it. I think that is, again, the way that that car should have come from the factory. So as far as I'm concerned, they're just righting a wrong with that platform. I think it's going to be pretty nice. Shawnee is saying, I would like to see the overdue refresh of the Challenger, slightly smaller, slightly lighter, but still a muscle car and 5 to 10% more power. It's saying just slightly more modern version of the classic 70 to 71 Challenger. I'm afraid they're going to discontinue it in a couple of years and replace it with something that we won't like. I hope not. Well, I think really what I don't want to have happen is, I do not want to get into the worst matchup, the worst fight you could get into, which would be to try to come down a weight class, if you want to think of it like this, because the Challenger is a big car, right? It's a big, very torquey, muscular, punchy car. But it doesn't really have legs up top. The Mustang is the exact opposite. Not a lot of torque, kind of lackluster, not a lot of G-force, but it's got legs on the back end, and that's its claim to fame. It can just gun down in the long run. That thing will take you into deep water, high mile per hour, and it will freaking drown you up there. But it's got to catch you to do it first. And we raced quarter mile. And I'll go back and tell you over and over again, I think I may have only lost one race to an NA 5-liter Coyote Mustang with that car. So, getting back to that, what I don't want to see happen is, I don't want to see the Challenger cut weight and try to fight and compete in the Coyotes weight class. It's not going to go well. It's going to have to cut way too much weight, and there's going to have to be a significant bump in power to make that car to reality. And I'll take it a step further. The Mustang, the big ace up the sleeve of the Mustang is modability. The Mopars just don't have that. So they're going to have to come to the table with an as-stock format that is going to be competitive from the word go, and that there won't be any kind of... It'll have to beat the Mustang in a fashion that it will be decisive, to say the least. Now, keep in mind, the 392 is already there in terms of power. That it's not how much power the 392 makes versus the 5-liter. It's simply a weight game at this point. So what I'm looking at realistically is just proportion the car maybe a little bit differently, call it a CUDA, revamp the LX platform, keep what you got, just maybe change things up a little bit. Do a little alakadabra, whatever. Work a little bit of magic and make the car basically something that is still recognizable as a Mopar, but not recognizable as a direct line of sight competitor to the Mustang. Because as it sits today, you can have in your garage a 1320, and you can have in your garage a Mach 1, and they will represent two completely different driving styles, two completely different driving experiences, and they're both exceedingly good at what they do. I'm assuming with the Mach 1, I haven't driven one, but I mean, damn, you look at the Mustang and you can figure that out. They both do their jobs exceptionally well. There's no need to blend them together. One's a yin to the other one's yang, and just call it good at that point. Again, thank you, CFL. I appreciate that, brother. Adam's saying a stock cold air intake is a beautiful thing, man. Yeah, it is. Sounds good, too. MG42 saying, I need a Hellcat all-wheel drive Pacifica. Who's to say it won't happen, brother? And again, Sean, thank you very much. Antoine's in saying, good evening, guys. Good evening, man. Jermaine checking in. Thanks, man. Johnny's saying the LX platform is very robust and stable. It just needs to lose 5 to 10% of the weight. I want to see it moving forward and maintain the muscle car feel. Maybe that's asking too much. You know, I'll tell you something. It's not just that. Yeah, it does need to lose a little bit of weight. A 10% weight drop would make it at least, I don't know, competitive. or more competitive with the Mustang if you want to look at it from more like a handling perspective. But man, I don't know. I don't want to see the car lose the stability that it has. I mean, that's one of the car's endearing traits. It's funny too. So if you don't, guys, if you don't know, the platform is derived from the old E-Class Mercedes sedan. In fact, I had an 09 E63, and if I were to take you, blindfold you, walk you out to my E63 and sit you down in the driver's seat, pick you up, take you over to a new Charger, because keep in mind, Charger is the four-door variant, much more closely related to the E-platform. Anyway, sit you in the same car, you'd have a hard time telling me the difference. Feel, fit, ergonomics, the whole bit. If I were to take those two chassis, unibody, take the body, strip it down to its components and have them both sitting there pointing nose to nose, you'd be hard pressed to tell me which one was which. That platform is unbelievably stable at high speed. I mean, it's designed to run the Nuremberg ring, or not Nuremberg, but the Autobahn at, maximum velocity indefinitely. Run it at 150 miles an hour for as long as you want. It's stable and it just cruises. That's the cool thing about the car. And if you go toying around with too much, it's going to reduce that stability, which might not necessarily be a bad thing. A little bit of twitchiness will make it a little bit more lively through the corners. But again, we got to stay in our lane. And I think that's the most important aspect of it. So anyway, Adam's saying, come on, Mopar, give us something for the track besides the Viper. Well, the problem is we don't even have that. So let's talk about the Viper. It's been now, hold on, what was it, 4 years ago? It's been about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, and I was at Meekum talking with the marketing guys with Dodge at the time, and knew about the Viper. I guess it was 4 years ago. Knew about the Viper being discontinued like way ahead in advance, and it kind of bummed me out. I've owned 3 of those cars, and I really liked them, even though they're not necessarily the best cars on the planet. For a lot of different reasons, they were great at doing one thing, and that was just being a really cool car. But the problem is that for me, the Viper has got to lose the V10. I'm just going to cut to the chase here. Viper's got to lose the V10, put a Hellcat engine in it, give the car an automatic so that it's got universal appeal, not just with, guys, but gals have got to be able to buy, want to drive this thing. And, a lower horsepower variant like I don't know, maybe an all aluminum 392. Doesn't even have to be aluminum necessarily. But my thought with that is you've already kind of got the platform. You've already been able to fit a V10. If you can fit a V10, you can fit a V8. If you can fit a V8, you can fit a Hellcat V8 in that thing. Do something to make that car universally appreciable. In other words, make the car available to everyone, because here's where the Viper. So now we're talking about Viper, right? So we're kind of on topic a little bit. Where the Corvette used to just wipe the floor with Viper, was the Viper was not an affordable car by any stretch of the imagination. The Corvette, on the other hand, if you had a naturally aspirated Corvette, not talking about the later ones, nothing like that, not even talking about the Z06 with the LS6. Let's talk about a C5 for a minute, because this is the point in time where these two cars were really, really going up against each other. You could have a base model Corvette. I can't remember what the price was, but it really doesn't matter. If you had a full-time job and you were willing to maybe work a couple of extra shifts a week, or, take on an extra account or two, or, whatever the case was, work a little bit of overtime, you could afford that Corvette. No problem with that. The Viper was not that car at all, and that was the Viper's downfall. It was just too expensive. If it had a naturally aspirated V8 and an automatic so that everybody could drive it, everybody could enjoy it, then it would have a much more broad appeal and it would work as a brand. In fact, that would be the only car that would get me to move into something else other than my Challenger. Would be something along those lines. Basically, something that would mirror the C7, or I should say the outgoing or outgone or now gone C7. And here's my other point with that. A lot of folks are looking at the C8 and they're just eye rolling. You might say, well, why is that? Well, first of all, look at the cost of the damn thing. It cost $80,000 to get into a vet. And I don't care what anybody says about a $65,000 variant. They don't exist. Not in the real world. They just don't. The real number is right around $80,000 to $84,000, $85,000. With a median income for somebody, again, with a full-time job and a career-type gig, you're making between $50,000 and $65,000 a year on average. Once you become, established, you've been doing this stuff for maybe 4 or 5 years. The reality is that that person cannot buy a vet. They used to be able to buy a vet, but not anymore. That guy or gal is going to buy a used Stingray, or they're going to buy a used C6. And if you don't think that that's the case, there are a lot of folks that were initially looking at the vet that once that $65,000 number turned into $75,000 or $80,000, ghost, peace out, see ya. No reason to even think about it. Those are the same folks that started looking at Dodge. They started looking at Hellcats that are selling for $70,000. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, shit, I wasn't above eating beanie weenies and freaking tuna and man, I'm a stud. You want to talk about my ramen game is on point to this day. So I'm here to tell you there's ways to get there, but you're not going to get there at $80,000. And to me, if Dodge came in with a car that took the place of the C7 in real terms, dollars and cents that people can afford, I think it would be not only a home run, that would be a grand slam. I mean, shut it down type of a deal for Dodge. So will that ever happen? Man, I don't know. It depends on who you want to believe, but what I've been able to glean over the last 3 years or so is that that's the direction that that car is going to be going, or that's the direction that they were looking to go up until about a year ago. So anyway, that's my number one car I'd like to see them bring back. I feel like, the red eye's great. The super stock is whatever. I mean, to me, it's just another trim level of a car that's sitting not too far away from me. I think that what needs to be done is that they need to bring back the spirit of the car, or of the brand, I should say. And in a lot of ways, I mean, look at the FCA victories that Viper amassed before funding was pulled from the racing programs. I mean, it was just every race that they were entered in, they would win. In fact, I remember clearly the restrictor plates they were putting on that intake manifold. They're like that big around. They're tiny to keep them competitive against the vets. Huh. Anyway, for your Le Mans block fans, if you know what that is. Again, Kobe, thank you very much, man. Adam's saying lightweight TA 392, man. Yeah, I like that. Hey, MG's got a good point here. MG42 Pillbox, Dakota unibody truck on Durango platform. i6 3.7 twin turbos sound way better than you might think. Well, y'all know how much of a fan I am of the inline 6 turbo platforms. I mean, that's one of my favorite. I love that. Or inline 6s just in general, man. I don't know. I'm kind of a weird nut when it comes to those engines. I just kind of like them. The 4-valve stuff, not the old 2-valve, water pump motors. But anyway, so that Dakota-sized truck, that Colorado or the Ranger-sized truck seems to be kind of making a comeback right now. It's unfortunate though that we're never going to get the mini truck. We're never going to get the Nissan hardbody type truck or the like little B2000 Mazda. We're never really going to get that size truck back. I just I don't think we could with safety regulations or any of that stuff. But man, I tell you what, a smooth, clean ass Nissan. I tell you what, where I live is infested with those old Nissan pickup trucks. I'm surprised I don't own one. I had one as a shop truck when I was in college, and that truck snapped. It snapped. We really don't know where it broke, but we do know that it snapped the connecting rod. I don't know who blew it up, but anyway, that truck ran on 3 cylinders for about 2.5 years. It was just a truck that we used to run parts up to the UPS in. I don't know, it still barked second gear. So anyway, but yeah, the smaller platform would be pretty sweet. Jermaine's checking in again, saying, I'd like to see revised intake and exhaust manifold with the cars coming with the staggered setup from FCA. Yes, my man is exactly right. So we've got to get the look of the car updated regardless of what is going to actually happen. A revised intake manifold would help greatly in just letting the car breathe a little bit better on the big end. Why have a set of cylinder heads that flows these ungodly numbers, but then cap it off on it, just basically cork it up top with an intake manifold that doesn't allow it to actually perform to its potential? Kind of nutty. There's got to be some type of a revision where you've got maybe the same length runner but just larger runners, or maybe a little bit more of a bell mouth style runner. Keep the dual runner intake, but just do something to make the thing be able to either rev out, breathe better, or do something, because the way it sits now, it's a great engine, but it's only great in the platform that you're putting it in. It just does not allow for very much over rev, so to speak. But again, we're still talking about an engine that's, shifting at 6,200 RPM. Still making a lot of power no matter what. But that staggered setup, yeah, I think from just an aesthetic point of view, I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Still trying to figure that out. But anyway, good point on that one. Very good point. Let's see. Oh, Sam's checking in and saying, what up, you Mason? What up, Sam? Saying, I have hopes for the rumored Turbo 6. I hope it's as good as the old Slant 6. Man, I've got big hopes for that. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the trucks. So we've covered the Viper. We're gonna segue into this with Sam on the trucks. 2 trucks that I would like to see. First and foremost, I want to see him come back with the Warlock. I want to see him come back with the Little Red Express-esque type truck. If you're not familiar with the Little Red Express or the Warlock, back in the late 70s, there were all these emissions control contraptions that they were putting on cars to get them to, have cleaner exhaust. But where you could get around that is with trucks. Trucks did not have to follow the same protocol. So what Dodge did is they threw a pissed off little 360 into a short bed pickup truck, called it the Little Red Express, and also called its other variant, the Warlock, and basically took a pickup truck and went racing with it on the street. Awesome pickup truck, and I think that's really where they're missing the boat. Call it an RT, call it a Warlock, call it whatever you want, but here's the thing: it has got to have a 392 in it. I can't imagine why or how there is a truck running around that does not have a 392 in it. I mean, Chevrolet's got the 6-liter. Why can't we have the 6.4? It just doesn't make any sense. These are trucks too, by the way. Nobody's buying these things because they, get stellar fuel economy numbers. I mean, what? Anyway. And yeah, I'm a little bit biased because I'm kind of a homer for that. But I think what we're missing here is, you can talk about the TRX, and we can definitely chat about that, and I want to. But, when Ford introduced the Lightning, they were basically getting into Dodge's backyard with that. And so when Dodge released the Viper truck, it was basically a reminder of, hey, this hot rod pickup thing is kind of our thing. Yeah, there were some hot rod Chevys back in the day, but yeah, we kind of set the tone for this later on, and we're going to keep it there. And so when Dodge chased the Raptor with the TRX, okay, whatever, fine. But here's the thing. I would like to see something more along the lines of the Little Red Express or the Warlock or the Shelby Dakota. You know, there's another hot rod pickup truck, or the Comanche, the 4-liter Comanches. Those were all hot rod pickup trucks that were street trucks. I would like to see Dodge continue that tradition and bring us, you know, that we've had the RT, but let's have, you know, the new RT, 392. Hellcat it if you want. That's easy to do. But anyway, that's one thing I would like to see coming from the trucks for sure. Adam's saying, right with you, Sean. We're waiting this all one and the same. I want a lighter TA 392. And again, Jermaine, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Sam saying, I have a feeling 426 is going to be revealed. Is a new motor in the Power Wagon and HD trucks to compete with the 473. You know, I had heard that, but unfortunately, it just hasn't shown up yet. There's no plan to put a 7-liter in those trucks, and you know, there was some talk of it, but at least leading into 21 and 22, when we're not seeing any indication that that is going to be a thing. It'd be cool if it would be. It'd be even cooler if, you know, they would start offering a 426. I don't know, in the Challenger, in the truck, and whatever. I mean, it'd be a great cash cow. I mean, it'd be a premium engine, right? So, I mean, not that it would cost any more to make it, but you would pay more to have that option. So, we'll see about that. I don't know. Adam's saying, right with you, B, Torque all the way. Hell yeah. It's the name of my dog, Torque. So, Johnny's asking, what is a good air-fuel ratio for a naturally aspirated 351? 12.8? How about your car? What is it like? Funny you should ask. So this thing wanted all the fuel that I could throw at it. So it was like in 12.5. Yeah, it liked 12.3. It liked 11.9. It liked 11.6. It liked whatever fuel I threw at this car, it didn't have a problem with it. Timing was what it was really more sensitive to. And to be honest with you, had my freaking data logger been working right, I would have been able to get a little bit better idea as far as what the car was really going to like. But the reality is that it, you know, liked about 32 degrees of timing. It liked around a 12.0, 12.3 air-fuel ratio. 12.5 was kind of where I was going to cap it initially, but I threw a little bit more fuel at it, and it didn't affect it at all at that timing range. And, you know, and it's pretty typical. I mean, engines are going to be more sensitive to timing than they are air-fuel for the most part. I mean, you start getting super rich or super lean, then yeah, you're going to get this kind of a bell curve, but yeah, for the most part, you've got a range. What just flew up my damn nose? You've got a range of, for most NA cars, anywhere from 12.8. Some will say 13.0, but 13.0 is realistically too lean. But anywhere from 12.8 to an 11.8, you won't see any real difference in power on the dyno. I mean, you won't. So, god damn, what the hell? I've got a nose hair that just went apeshit. Sam saying the 7.3 is about 444 cubic inches. Yes, it is. Iron saying, I'd like to see a Viper even with a V8 or a light NA sports car with a 392. Yeah, you know, that's kind of what I was getting at, and it's got to have universal appeal. It's got to be to where you could hand anybody the keys, they can hop in it. It's a motorized vehicle, right? It's got to be a car first, but it's got to be sexy, fun, exciting, and all of that as well. But it has to be something that fits. Basically, it needs to be the new Corvette. And not only does it need to be the new Corvette, but it kind of needs to be the Corvette of, you know, the 60s and early 70s, where you've got an NA version and then a hot rod version, whether that hot rod is supercharged, Hellcat, Red Eye, whatever variant you want. but it needs to have that affordability, even though and you can look upstream, right, and see stuff that you can't afford. But if I want to get into a Viper, I need to see that I can afford it, that it is attainable. That was its Achilles heel before, not to mention people just flat out. One of the interesting things that I was told in that conversation was in the focus groups and in just talking with folks in general, they hated the way that the Viper sounded. And sound, because it's such a big aspect of just the experience of the car, that was something that they were taking into account more than you might think, more than I thought at least, which I thought was interesting. Let's see. Iron Brotherhood's asking, ever seen anybody put a red eye / Hellcat supercharger intake, etc. onto a 392? Yeah, I've heard of it. There's, I think there's some adapters. MMX, I believe, sells an adapter kit for running that intake on, running the intake. Well, I guess it is an intake. Running that supercharger on the NA cars. Not the direction that I would go. Not the direction that I would go if I were going to be running stock internals on those engines. I would prefer to see the E-Force kit, and for a couple of reasons. One, I think the compressor is a little bit more user-friendly than the IHI unit, although the IHI is extremely efficient. The 2650 that comes with that new E-Force kit is amazing. It makes some really good power. But it's a very clean kit, and it doesn't require anything other than just installing the kit. I mean, there's no, I don't know, how do I put this? I don't know. It's just such a clean kit that I wouldn't deviate from it. I've seen the 392 cars, but especially, I've only seen a couple of 392 cars with that kit. But I've seen a bunch of 5.7s, and I've driven a bunch of 5.7s with that E-Force. After playing with that kit, I wouldn't see why you'd even want to go through the headache or the hassle of getting another setup. But yes, I have, and it just is not my cup of tea. Adam's checking in saying, totally. Junior's checking in saying, howdy D. What's up, Junior? Chris is saying, cool, good to know. The Z06 is an awesome platform, but I also love the history of the Grand Sport, the name that it carries. Absolutely. Well, keep in mind, the Z06, the name Z06 carries a lot of weight. That's from 1963, by the way. Let's see. And I honestly think the Grand Sport sounds meaner. It does sound good. Chris asks, do you think UC7 Z06 prices will drop after the C8 has been out for a few years? My max is about $55,000. I would suggest that you would want to save up a little bit more, but yes, you'll see that price start to drop. Mr. Blacktop's checking in, got the arm flex, got the fist bump. I like it, saying, love what you've done with the Cat. I would have liked to see the Hellcat engine in the 300, preferably. Yes, no kidding, right? Preferably the 2012 body. Why did FCA give up on the 300? A couple of reasons they gave up on the 300. One was CAFE. The issue with the, well, not really CAFE, I should say it was, well, for one, it's just, I hate to say it, it's just kind of one of these creepy deals. First of all, it's average fuel economy. That's a big deal, but the car just wasn't selling here in the States the way that SUVs sell. And unfortunately, because they weren't selling in the volume here in the States, they weren't going to have the number of performance variants of that product. They just weren't going to put that out there because it wasn't going to be a viable product, unfortunately. That's the creepy part. Odd, though, that Australia and UAE gets the 6.4 option in the 300. I mean, they get the Hot Rod 300. They just don't have a Hellcat version of it, unfortunately. But I think you're right, and I think that it's unfortunate too, because I love 300s. You know, my mom's got a 300. They're nice cars, and I think that it's a shame that, you know, they never really kept up with it. But, you know, it's a tough sell, especially when you have the Charger on board. But I don't know. Could you imagine a wide body 300 with a Hellcat option? Oh, dude, that'd be sick to death, man. But why not just call it the Imperial? That'd be really cool. Call it the 300, whatever you like. But yeah, I'm kind of right there with you, man. I'm bummed out that they just didn't extend it. And you know, and to that point, you know, the Magnum too. But I don't know. So part of that conversation that I had with that the marketing guy was, well, what about the Magnum? And he goes, well, did you ever buy one? I'm like, well, no. It's like, that's why it doesn't make it anymore. You know, they just, again, you know, it's just not a viable platform. People were buying more of them. Believe me, they'd bring it back over here. Anthony's saying DCT Viper. I don't know if I would go that far. I would go HP 90 though. And here's the thing. My thoughts with that are, look, you put a Hellcat platform, HP 90, 6.2, 10 or 11 pounds of boost, makes 700 and whatever horsepower, but it is a bomb-proof 700 and something horsepower. Don't play with the DCT stuff. Let the other guys play in that sandbox. It's not worth it. Don't try to be cute. Don't try to reinvent something. You're talking about a platform, a powertrain that is so overwhelmingly robust and so overwhelmingly underrated in terms of just durability and some will argue power production that, I mean, could you imagine being able to go out and beat that car senseless, run what would realistically be like 1020s from the factory just on accident like that, nail down 25, 26, 28 miles per gallon on the highway? I mean, it's like the best of all worlds. And it's a cash cow. I mean, it's not like it's costing them a ton of money. Believe me, they're making plenty of cash on those cars, or would make plenty of cash on those cars for everyone that they would make. And again, this is not a plea to be perfect either. Look, the Vet, the balance of the Vet, aluminum block, all that, okay, fine, whatever. Nobody's asking for that. They're asking for something that goes out and just kicks ass. That's all that car would be good for, and that's all it would need to be good at. So, let's see. Adam's saying, B, when is Mopar going to start making the rear wheel larger? Oh, they talk about the staggered offsets. Man, I don't know. That's a great question, Adam, because I feel like I've been yelling into the same screen for so many years about this. The problem is that this is the perception. A lot of us are asking for a standard wheel and tire setup. The perception of a square wheel and tire setup on a car like this is that it's just cheaper. Not less expensive, but cheaper, if you know what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense to not have a staggered offset. It looks better with a staggered offset. It performs better with a staggered offset. You're charging Mopar money for these cars. Guys, please run a freaking staggered offset. The aftermarket has done a great job of getting us there. Make it available. It shouldn't be that difficult, but yet it seems like it is. And for me, that's a shame, because it's one of the more frustrating parts of the ownership experience of these Mopars is that, I mean, you have to have the set of wheels ordered for the car from factory reproductions or replica. You're going to have those wheels ordered before your car is ordered. You know what I mean? So anyway, I feel your pain, man. I mean, I am right there with you on that. What can I say? You know, it's just one of those things where you just got to get it through their head, I guess. Anthony G saying, I love to see it, for sure. Let's see. Oh, Dialysis Forever saying the Dodge, talking about the 1320 package does not include the front passenger seat, rear passenger seat belt or seat. From what I understand, if you want a passenger seat, you have to pay for the 1320 plus the group. Well, it's just $1. It's just like the Demon. I think he paid $1 for that front seat. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of their gimmick, I guess. MG42 saying, we need a Ram HD 1500 on the TRX frame, but with a base trim option and cheaper tires. 6.4 8-speed. You know, I tell you something, that would be a lot of fun. You know, anything with the 6.4 is going to be good, in my opinion, for that truck. I mean, it's a truck. The 5.7 runs really good. And I love that truck. I love my work truck, but yeah, that 6.4 would certainly spice things up a little bit for sure. Destroyer 1320 saying, hit that like, y'all. Yeah, hit the like. Hit that like. Like, subscribe, share, do all of that. Hit the bell, ring the button, whatever all that stuff is. I really should know more about that. But apparently it helps with logarithms and things like that. YouTube's a little bit different than it used to be. I need all the help I can get. Angie said, we really do need a two-wheel drive Ram Hellcat, though, period. Yeah, the thing is that why don't we have it? That, to me, that's one of the weirder ones that we don't have, because it's the easiest one to do. But anyway, Chris is saying, if Dodge brought a Hellcat Viper that offered an auto for under $100,000, it would break the internet. Actually, I'll take that a step further. That car should come in at $65,000 with, I'll tell you what, I would say $55,000 for the 392. I would say $68,000 or $70,000 for the Hellcat engine variant. MG42 saying Viper Elephant 8-speed auto. Yeah, they could definitely do that too. That would be their ultimate top trim level car, which would be pretty sick. Hemiad saying, love the Challenger and think it's the only real muscle car left, but it needs to be either retired or massively updated. A retro, homage, CUDA, Coronet, or Duster with 500 plus horsepower NA could be awesome. It could be, and you know, a lot of folks will tend to agree with that statement too, is that, you know, the car's been around since, well, frankly, 2008. You know, it's going to be coming up on, oh God, you know, 15, 16 years old by the time it's actually updated. Maybe even longer than that. Look, there's no sin in a longevity like that. It's just that, and it is the last of the muscle cars. But again, to put it in perspective, what makes Mopar great, what makes FCA's endeavor with these cars so endearing, is that they never have deviated from that recipe. In fact, it's just been more of that recipe when it pertains to the Challengers and the Chargers. And of course, you know, the Hellcatization of the rest of the lineup, which is great, but it's really the Challenger and the Charger that are driving that narrative. And you know, I gotta tell you, that's the beauty of those cars, is that they are such a different car from the Mustang or the Camaro. Let's not forget that the Camaro exists. Poor thing. Anyway, I think y'all know what I'm talking about. It's just, it's so hard to talk about Dodge in the respect of a car like the Mustang when they've done so well with the muscle car genre. Whatever they do, they need to keep that. They need to keep that flavor alive, however they do it. Gaga's checking in saying, what up, B? Got the fist bump. Saying, I would like to see a whole new Challenger Charger with an aggressive design and keep the V8 Hemis with at least 500 to 550 horsepower in A. It might be kind of tough to get those numbers out of it, but I will say this. Maybe a little bit different design, maybe a step away from your dad's Challenger, if that makes any sense. The Charger's already got more of a futuristic look, and to that point, you know, I was talking about the Grand Wagoneer a minute ago, or I think I was. Anyway, I get sidetracked pretty easy. At least in my head, I was thinking about it, right? So anyway, But in talking about the Grand Wagoneer, though, if you notice, they didn't go retro with that vehicle. It looks like, again, it looks a lot like the Expedition, or the I don't know, the Ford stuff, right? The Lincoln, whatever the Lincoln thing is. That's what I'm really trying to get to. It looks a little bit too much like that. And because it looks so much like that, I don't really identify with that as a Grand Wagoneer as much as I would if it had a cool looking retro kind of vibe to it. It's got a little bit too much nightclub and not, you know, night under the stars type of vibe, if you know what I'm saying. So to me, it's just a big car. And the last of the muscle cars, being the Challenger, if you look at it from just styling, it's really the last of the throwbacks that Mopar offers, except for the Jeep. So for me, yeah, I would like to see something a little bit more updated, mainly so that the youth have something to call their own. I don't really know the best way to go about doing that, aside from, you know, again, some type of a facelift, some type of a revision to that platform, but make it something that somebody that is in their 20s can gravitate towards, and gravitate towards it naturally, not be told that that's what you're supposed to think looks good. Does that make any sense? Hope it does. Chris saying, oh yeah, by the way, are you excited for the new Nissan Z? Manual transmission was confirmed. Looking at you, Supra. Okay. So, for you guys that aren't in the know, the Z400 has been rumored. It's been kind of played with, hinted, teased. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Z cars. I had a 350Z low rev, which is the higher, the known to be more torquey than horsepower, 350, and I had that when I lived in NorCal, and I used to tear PCH up with that car. So yeah, I love the idea of what they're coming out with. Now, I don't know what engine, I don't know any of that. There's some rumors about an Infinity engine. Anyway, if they do that car right, oh God, I'm gonna have to get something the size of the Astrodome to hold the number of cars I'm gonna end up wanting to get. But that would be a car that would be on the very top of my list, because that is the type of fun that you can have on the street. That, again, to be able to run one of those cars at 8/10 or 9/10 all the time is a lot more fun in a lot more circumstances than running, you know, something that's really fast at like 6/10 all the time, 7/10 all the time. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. That Supra with the BMW power plant is a bad son bitch. And of course, it's got an HP transmission in it, so there's that. But again, the guy that lives down here that's got one, boost only, the kid's running freaking 11.0s with that thing on just drag radials. It's not like he's on a drag pack or anything like that. The car looks pretty as sin, hauls all kinds of ass, and I mean, he's not really done much more than just giving it a good breathing on. So I'm hoping, oh, here's the other thing. I'm hoping that the 400Z does have more of that retro vibe. Because, man, I love me some old school, you know, 240-esque looking lines. And if you look at the silhouette, that's kind of where it was going. I haven't done too much digging into that car, mainly because from what I had seen leading up to a couple of weeks ago, it was really more renderings than anything else. But man, I gotta tell you, yeah, I'm excited about it. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it, and we'll just have to see what happens with that car. Let's see. Anthony G is talking about wanting a smaller car or truck. Keep the manual for some of us cavemen. Dude, got that for sure. So for me, you know, we've talked about the Wagoneer. I can't really get too excited about that thing. Aside from looking great pulling up to the club, that thing just doesn't do a lot for me. But damn if it isn't pretty. In that respect, thumbs up-ish. Talked about the Jeep needing a V8. Obviously led with the Viper. We need something cool from a small car perspective. We need something to kick up the youth market. We need something that's going to be fun, that's going to wind out, that's going to do really cool stuff. But I would like to see a little bit of a return to the smaller kind of hot rod, hot hatch type of a format that kind of was something cool and quirky about Dodge back in the 80s. So my very first car was a Dodge 600. That's an ES platform. Basically, it's like an evolution of the K car. But here's the twist. That little coupe, or sedan, I should say, by proper nomenclature, had the 2.2 liter turbocharged engine in it. And it was, for its day, kind of weirdly fast. You know, it was making, for the time, V8 horsepower. It just didn't weigh near as much. I guess the point that I'm making here is that those cars like the 600s, the Omni, the Daytona, those types of cars were cool because they did represent something so different. I'm a big fan of that. I don't know if we can ever get away with that again. And the Dart was a bit of a flop because it never really was marketed properly. But something that would not only help, you know, the corporate average fuel economy, the CAFE standards, something that would not only help the CAFE standards, but would just bring the car down, or bring the brand down to earth a little bit, and bring a little bit of excitement to a class of car that's just tough to really get excited about. Not to mention the fact you've got to remember that you've got brands like Hyundai and the like, right? I mean, you got brands, well, talking about Hyundai, that have got some really kind of good looking cars coming out, especially with the Genesis brand. I mean, tough to argue just how good looking that car is for the price. Now, it used to be that brand was just cheap, good gas mileage, disposable transportation. Sometimes that's not a bad thing, you know. You know, and if you can add in a little bit of hot rod flair, just as good. SRT4 starts to sound familiar at this point. So, anyway, another thing I would like to see him kind of lean in that direction. Anthony's saying they need to Hellcat something stupid light. Oh shit. It's like everything they've thrown the Hellcat engine in is already crazy heavy already, so. Emmy had saying the Toyota Hilux trucks are majorly awesome. It had an 85 extra cab, and it was probably the best vehicle I've ever owned. 230,000 trouble-free miles. A USA diesel offering in that truck, and I'd own one. Yeah, you know, that's something else to consider. What about, you know, a revised diesel, you know, eco diesel for the trucks? Might be something to consider. In fact, everybody that I've talked to that owns an eco diesel loves the eco diesel. I've never driven one, but again, you know, if you're driving a truck, not because you want it to be fast, but just because you want it to be a truck, the eco diesel is not a bad move. Ford's got their diesel. I'd like to see Dodge do theirs too. Sean's saying that he saw his first Ranger up close and personal today. It's not particularly small, about the same size as a 97 F-150, honestly. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Crazy, right? The small trucks, how big they are. MG42 saying they need to offer the 6.2 supercharged in the HDs in the Power Wagon. For sure they need to do that. Could you imagine a detuned version of that? Maybe with a, I don't know, a 6.4? You know, just have the longer stroke? That'd be kind of nice. Capscat saying my phone is acting super funky. I'll catch the rest of this tomorrow. Peace out, everybody. Keep it up. Be Lover Channel. Thanks, man. Appreciate that, Capscat. TU's checking in, saying, LB, I'd like to see Gen 6 Viper with a minimum of 845 horsepower, 790 torque, enough power to give an upcoming C801 the blues. Yeah, I would like to see that, and that's cool. Have that a little bit further, upstream, as they say in the corporate speak. But yeah, have that. But what I want to see is that pissed off little 392. I want to see that mad as hell 426. I want to see that Hellcat variant in there as well. And I want to see it be available and affordable to folks just so that they can have one, just so that it's worth building it in volume. I mean, that's what made the Corvette great. Listen, it wasn't build quality. Corvettes were never known for build quality, but the biggest quality that they had was the quantity that they were built in. And again, they sell enough and build enough Corvettes to where it is its own brand. So I think that would be awesome. But to just be able to go up there and just start smacking around Corvettes again would be awesome. Maglo saying, back on the Viper, a mid-engine Viper would be a great competitor to the new C8. We already have the muscle pony car, the Challenger and Charger. So Dodge came out with, and y'all know this one, I keep forgetting it, the 405 or the 450, whatever it was, the mid-engine Dodge Chrysler, I think is the actual brand, sports car that was actually pretty kick-ass. They could maybe move in that direction. I would like to see a front mid-engine as opposed to a rear mid-engine, mainly just because some of the feedback I've heard about the Vet is that it does suffer a little bit of the understeer that you kind of come to expect from a rear mid-engine car. That's where the Z06 was so good, at least in being predictable, is that, it was more of a front mid-engine with that front engine being so far back from the front axles. But it didn't really push the way that the C8 does. So, but that's, as a driver, you learn how to work around whatever strengths or weaknesses your platform has. But you're right. I mean, Dodge has already kind of done that. It's been a while back, too. I always forget the damn name of that thing. But, awesome looking car. If you look it up, look up Chrysler mid-engine sports car, and that'll be the rabbit hole that you'll hop down and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Sean, he's saying Ram 1500 with a 392 would easily run in the 13s with unaggressive factory gear and maybe 373s or something. I'd go the same gear split that you've got with a 5.7. Just go 323s or 392s, whatever blows your hair back. But you can get the 392s the way that it sits now. That's how the RT's coming. That's how I had put the 392 gears in my old truck. So, yeah, that was a fun truck too. Kevin's checking in. Kevin Collins said, "Hey Mason, as a bolt-on for the 5.7, is there better flowing heads than stock worth getting, or is it better to stay stock?" Stay stock, brother. Don't worry about it. If you want a better set of heads, just get a set of ported. Call up. You got Thytech, or you've got Hooper's heads here in Houston. He has an amazing CNC program for those heads. So definitely something worth considering. But at your power level, you don't need it. The thing is your heads already flow. Your head's naturally aspirated. If you had the right intake and the right cam, would support somewhere around 580 horsepower, 600 horsepower as it sits. So you're not lacking for cylinder head. It's really more intake manifold, exhaust system, compression ratio, and camshaft is what you're lacking. Let's see. Chris is saying, I wonder if the C8 Z06 will be a flat plane crank like the rumors say, maybe with turbo. That'd be so weird. From what I'm hearing, 4-valve flat plane crank, but we'll see how that works out. Not a huge jump in power, but a lot of usable RPM up top, which is going to be pretty cool. MG42 saying, incredible Hemi, got 1290s and a 4x4 quad cab with 323 gears, stock 5.7 long block. Yeah, so, I mean, dude, we've got So there's a lot of really fast trucks, really fast Hemi trucks running around down here. It's not uncommon to see low 12s, high 11s with a cam, long tubes, and some weight reduction and on a tire with those trucks. Especially in good weather. I mean, 1190s are basically that's like the cover charge for those trucks. And they're fun to drive, which is more than you can say for a lot of those cars. John and Hamlet checking in. What up, brother? Saying, what up, B? What's up, John? J Ham in the house. Shawnee's checking in saying, my Hellcat just made over 730 rear wheel horsepower on a Mustang dyno. I have an appointment for a dyno jet in a few days. 750? Yeah, it should be somewhere right in that neck of the woods. Right there about 745, 755. I would guess. Boosted Amy saying, hey B, I took my Hellcat to the 8th Mile Sunday for the first time and ran 671 at 107 in the heat. That's screaming for in the heat, brother. I like it. Yeah, that's real good for that car. Congratulations. Good Look is checking in saying, Mason, hey, question. Peter North here, old adult film star. Would I be willing to work on the adult film set as an advisor? No, I am out of that industry now. But thank you for offering. You must have seen one of my older videos. Canada guy saying, how's it going tonight, B? Been enjoying the old 6.1 with the throttle controller. I think I'm going to need a new set of new tires sooner than later. Got the arm flex. Dude, I'm telling you, you're going to love it. And that's why I was saying, to me, that is one of the more fun parts about these cars with the electronic throttle is that you can put something together or you can install something on your car that it doesn't affect anything about the stock programming, and you can just dial the attitude in on that car. It's so much fun. Oh, Shawnee is checking in saying, yeah, 107 in heat is excellent. His car did 109 in great air. Boosting him saying, yeah, thanks, Sean. Let's see. Kurt saying Chrysler had the 392 Hemi in 1958 and blew it. Did not develop it and went to 413. Well, they had the 392, the 345, or 354, one of the two. They had some really good engines. The problem is, one of the problems really started when better fuel started to come out and you could run higher octane and along with that, higher compression ratios. The issue with the Hemi is that you've got a heavier piston. You've got especially for back then, because those were a true hemispherical head. They do very well with really crappy gas. They're very high in so they're very low in thermodynamic efficiency, but they're very high in being able to move air. So the idea is that and they're more expensive to produce too. They're more of a pain in the ass really to produce. So they actually moved towards the poly head, which was going to be their answer to, a less expensive head design to make, and even that didn't really compete that well with the more heart-shaped combustion chambers, the inline valve, like literally inline, not just staring at each other, opposed, set up like the Hemi, and it worked out great. And that's one of the issues. And instead of developing it, they kind of went with the flow, took advantage of the higher compression offered by the inline valve and the lower development, or I should say the lower assembly cost, and just started to run with that. And really it wasn't until the Gen 2 Hemi that folks started to really consider bringing that technology back to the forefront. And it's not without its benefits, but the biggest issue is the biggest, I don't know, the biggest benefit to a Hemi is the fact that it can just move so much air. The valve configuration, the valve angle allows for unshrouding of the valves. You're moving a ton of air. But again, the problem with that, its blessing is its curse. It's a tumble port head. It's not really a swirl port head. You're taking big gulps of air, and to get any real velocity, you've got to turn the engine high. And one of the fun facts is, if you look at a 440, this is kind of where I was trying to take this. If you look at a 440 and you look at a Hemi, it's interesting to note, number one, the difference in sales figures. And you can say, well, the Hemi was just so expensive. It wasn't that much more expensive in real terms. But when you hand somebody the keys to a car with a 440 and it's got all this tip-in torque, that's like the selling point of that car. It's just real snappy, real responsive. Now, look, the party's over at 5,000 RPM with a 440 in stock form. It just is. But you've got a lot of party leading up to that. The Hemi didn't really get interesting, and this is the street Hemi, not the race Hemi. The street Hemi, and I've dynoed these cars, I've driven them. They don't really get interesting until about 3,000 RPM. Well, the 440 is already real snappy leading up to 3,000 RPM. If you've got an automatic, you want something that's real snappy like that. I got to tell you, it's a tough sell to get into the Hemi. Now, you break your foot off in it, and at about 4,500 RPM, that's where kind of a funny number starts. And this is where I'm going with this. It's the port velocity going through a 440 versus what's going through that Hemi engine. And I'll spare you all the dumb details, but at 4,500 RPM, coming up on peak horsepower, by the way, on a 440, at 4,500 RPM, the 440 has the same port velocity that the 426 Hemi has at 6,100 RPM. So, granted, that's a completely different amount of air happening, but it gives you an idea as far as street ability and how snappy the 440 would be as opposed to the Hemi. And it's tough to get one of those things to act right, especially when you start bringing the combustion chamber size down, start to change the combustion chamber or start to dome a Hemi too much, because now you've got a problem with scavenging. Just the piston literally gets in the way of things. A lot of goofy stuff with Hemis. But what they lack in thermodynamic efficiency, they more than make up for in volumetric efficiency. And that's why you would see Hemis on some of the very, very early airplane engines. The Hall Scott engine is a great example of that, where you've got an engine with a 5-inch bore, like a 7 or an 8-inch stroke, and they were running those engines on gasoline with, if I remember correctly, I think the octane rating was like 40 or something stupid like that. So the compression ratios were very low, but they would still make decent power, especially, it couldn't spin them very high, but it would still make decent power because you can move so much air and fuel at the same time. And you didn't have the issue with squish area where you would with an inline valve as opposed to an opposed facing valve engine. So anyway, God, I can get off on some nerd shit, can I? Anyway, getting back to it. Let's see. Oh, Jermaine, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it again, man. My friend saying, what are your thoughts on no tune required camshafts? No such thing. You might know them as a no spring required camshaft, in which case I'll also say I don't believe in that. The reason why I don't believe in, well, there's no tune required because your volumetric efficiency of the engine itself drops with more cam timing down low and will raise up top. So in the tune, you literally couldn't do it because it changes the dynamic aspect of airflow in and out of the engine at different RPMs. Now, that being said, the no spring required cams, I don't like the way that that's sold. Now, let me tell you why. Anytime you're looking at a camshaft that is going to be either throwing more lift, more duration, or simply has a more aggressive load profile, it makes control of the valve more difficult. The biggest issue with putting a cam together for a Hemi isn't really the lobe events or anything like that. Part of it is working with the stock intake manifold, which is, there's enough of a headache there already. But the big part of it is controlling this big intake valve that they have, the geometry that's built into the system, which is a little bit restrictive. It's a little bit binding, if you want to think of it that way. Or at least that's the way I'll try to think of it when I'm putting together spring, like load packages for the cams that I put together. But it's the push rod length that adds weight. It's the lifter that adds weight. There's so much weight to the Hemi valve train that you need a set of springs to control it, or else you can get into valve float. When things just aren't really tight enough and they're not staying together, things get wonky, and things can go wrong. You end up bending a push rod. So the reason why you can kind of get away with that with these cars is that the stock cam profile on the 392 is a weird looking profile. It's got not much duration, but a lot of lift. So it's got a very aggressive load profile from the factory, and really if you just throw more duration at it and keep the same lift, you'll almost be easier on the valve train. But that's not going to help you get any power. You need to have an aggressive load profile that ramps that valve open quickly and then kills it really quickly, to be able to maintain a certain semblance of drivability and making power at the same time. So to do that, you need a better spring, and the stock spring just isn't really there in my opinion. The second half of that is, look, let's be honest here. We're talking about factory stock parts that may or may not be very consistent one batch to the next to the next to the next. So what may work just fine with one engine may not work fine with another, and you need something that's more of a controlled assembly, if you want to think of it that way. Not to mention, dude, the head's got to come off anyway. Put a different set of springs in it. It's not like it's going to cost really that much more to do, and it ain't like you ain't got it there. It's not going to be a hard thing to do. With the Hemi, the head has to come off. Put the right springs on it. In other words, pair the springs to the cam properly. And again, my opinion, PSI 15, 16 springs are the only way to go. You get the right amount of seat pressure, the right amount of open pressure, and they just seem to work out really well, especially for boosted Hemis, because the valve is so big. You're going to need more valve pressure just to control it, especially to keep it seated under boost. Some goofy stuff that happens to these things under boost. Anyway, I should say there's weird stuff that you have to consider. So, anyway, hopefully that helps you out. Hopefully that maybe explains a little bit to you. My thoughts on it anyway. Let's see. Let me get back to these guys. But thank you very much for that contribution, brother. I appreciate it. Let's see. Man, I'm missing a bunch of folks here. Shawnee's saying, unfortunately, American cars are kind of dead right now. Yeah, a little bit. Not too bad, though. Ken797 saying, throw a bone to the Challenger and Charger owners. Offer a program to get rid of track mode and replace it with drag mode. My thoughts exactly. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because why can't I just update my Uconnects? You know what I mean? Like, why can't I update my Uconnect to have the same stuff? It isn't like like, really? It's just software. Why can't I do that? Why can't I have drag mode? Why can't I have that interactive experience? That's a great point. In fact, so much of a great point that I would say that may be more important to a lot of guys than a new car would just be to freshen up the car that they have. So great point, man. I love that idea. I very much agree with that. Cody's saying, what I would like to see is the FCA to bring back the Neon and the Caliber, to bring back the SRT4. Y'all know I'm a big fan of that. Shawnee's saying, I run staggered setup on my Hellcat. It should have been stock. I agree with that 100%. Boosted Amy saying, I love my Charger. Dude, Chargers are sweet. Let's see. Oh, Shawnee's asking Boosted what all he's got done to his car. 285 upper, duster off tune, BMR 309. The huge. Shawnee's saying, nice your car is drag pack from running 999s. Yep. Dr. S checking in, saying, hey B, hope all is well. Just got a new clutch installed on the Coyote and I'm getting misfire, coach. Should I do a crank relearn? Yes. Anytime you mess with the Coyote in that respect, you have to do the crank relearn, or you will get the pain in the ass misfire check engine. So yes, do the crank relearn and you are in good shape, my brother. Very common thing. Don't sweat it. Not a big deal. Boosted saying, Shawnee's saying, and a drag pack. Got Shawnee and Boosted hanging out there. Let's see. Cody's saying, if Mopar and Toyota made a car, it would be powerful and reliable. Yeah, I think that would be very very true. Shawnee's saying, my Hellcat is very reliable and extremely high performance. Not a normal combination. Typically, it's one of the things about the Hellcats, the Hellcat combination. Not to get too far off track, but man, they are incredibly durable. So, you know, that's the main thing. It's just the durability. Got Shawnee and Boosted hanging out. Let's see. MG42 saying the Wraith by Dodge, 1986. No, but good call. That is not the car, but it was a damn it. It was a Chrysler car. I'm looking at it in my head and I just cannot remember the name of it, but y'all will get it. Shawnee's still hanging out with Boosted. Let's see. Callus and I say, what I want to see from FCA, I just want them to be completely honest about whether or not they're coming out with the CUDA and what kind of engine it's going to be. You know, guys, I got to agree with Catalyst here. You know, my thing is this. I feel like I'm sitting in the doctor's office, okay? I feel like I'm sitting in the doctor's office and I don't know if I've got to get a shot, or I know I've got to get a shot. I just want them to show up and give me the shot. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm pretty sure the needle is going to be as long as my arm, and I just don't want that. If I'm going to have to get it, I'm going to have to get it. Just give me the shot. I would like to have a little bit of pageantry to go along with this, the way that they did with the Demon and with some of the other cars. I like that marketing behind it, so I would like to have a little bit of that, but the reality is that, look, at this stage of the game, you have got to agree with me that there is so much pent-up want for something new at this stage that even if it's just a teaser, like the 400Z, for example, even if it's just a teaser, we need something to get excited for. And right now, it's just going to be more of the same. You know, the super stock, it's like, guys, come on, dude. We can't have another toy for super rich folks. We need something for the NA fans. Something like that 1320 that I was talking about earlier. I didn't know how fun that car was. And I mean, my eyes are open to it now, big time. That car on the street is a riot. Shrink it down, do whatever you got to do to the current platform, but just don't lose that fun edge, and don't lose the spot that you overtook back in 15 of being the baddest boy on the block. That's, if you're going to be a badass, be the baddest ass, and that's what Dodge was able to do for a long time. Let's see. Shawnee's hanging out with Boosted. Yeah, I think we're all running. Oh, ME412. That's it. Maglove checked in. ME412. Boosted and Sean are going. I love it. I'll let y'all go through and check that out. They're going back and forth on the track stuff. Speed Freak checking in saying, hey B, picked up the Raystar 17x9.5s like you have. Very nice. Any torque spec to tighten those lugs too, or tips to tighten those washers with them? So you're going to take your lug, you're going to take your washer with the concave side. You know, like if this is the lug where you're going to put your socket, the concave side always goes that way to where you're compressing the actual washer in. You're going to tighten them to 110 foot-pounds of torque. You're going to do that in 2 to 3 steps in a star pattern. Maglo saying, when you get the time, please make a video on pre-Eagle 5.7 Hemis, do's and don'ts. Maybe your thoughts on what to get it moving quick with the Nag 1. Can do that. Kind of did that already on one video. I can tell you this. The pre... Look, here's the thing, man. You're going to run into one big problem with those engines, and that is valve seats. They had a tendency to drop valve seats when you started throwing power at them. So my thought initially would be you got to pull the heads, get them sent to a machine shop, and have new valve seats installed in those heads first and foremost. A lot of shops wouldn't mess with the earlier Hemis because of that. And a lot of it had to do with heat, if they had been overheated, if people hit them with nitrous, they had a nasty habit of dropping valve seats. So there's that. But the normal rules still apply. Keep the cam conservative, long tubes, a tune. That's really all you need. Nag 1 is kind of already there, and it's easy to tune. So really more trans tuning than anything else. Look, one of the first cars that I really ever fell in love with was a 2012. It was a 2012 Signature Series with a Nag 1. And I love that car. And that's all I would do to that one. Tune, trans tune, long tubes, because those cars have a little bit different load profile. They can actually get away with some picking up a little bit of power with long tubes. And that's really it. That's really all you need. But the main thing is going to be in that transmission tuning. But just be careful, because the earlier Hemis, in some cases, can run into problems with that with the valve seats. Let's see. Oh, Shawnee and Boosted still hanging out. Say HU37 saying, I like to see FCA build a car that weighs less than 4,000 pounds. With Chevrolet having no plans for the Camaro, a car built using the Giulia platform would probably sell. You know, it's funny. The Giulia platform was kind of played around with for a while, as was the Ghibli platform, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's just a larger platform through Maserati. One of the problems is, if you look at where the marketing is for Dodge right now, with just the Dodge brand itself, they're driving the narrative of muscle more than anything. And the Giulia platform just didn't really fit that marketing bill. Now, of course, that's always going to be a fluid thing, but still, when you look at it from the point of view that, you know, they've been so, again, you know, bookending different than the Ford, it makes you kind of wonder why they would have even considered that platform. I mean, was that just thrown out there as a red herring, or is it something that was real? Who's to say? But I will say this, a revision is coming. And then what kind of a revision, I think, is yet to be pinned out, but I bet you it's just a revised version of the platform that we already have. And again, Jermaine, thanks again, man. I appreciate the contribution, buddy. I really do. Let's see. Again, we got Shawnee and Boosted hanging out. I love it. HU37 saying, I don't think the early Hemis were all that great. The Wedge was better engine in every way except at wide open throttle. Yeah, you're talking about the 4.7. You know, the early, or maybe you're talking about the 360s. The early Hemis, I mean, they were good. They made good power. It was just, you know, they had some casting issues, and that's just, you know, not all of them had the problem, but it's just something to consider. A lot of guys don't, want to mess with the early Hemis primarily because of that. We'll stick to something later. MG42 saying 1940 V16 Hemi, 2,000 horsepower. That is correct. There were several of them, and all of them had centrifugal style superchargers, and some of them had turbochargers. Shawnee's saying FCA stick with the Hemi head moving forward or go with a 4-valve head. The 5-liter is a monster. That depends on what your opinion of packaging is. Yeah, first of all, the LX platform would have to be significantly changed up to be able to manage anything in the respect of a 4-valve head. That's the biggest problem with the LX platform, is that it's not very efficient in terms of its use of size in that engine compartment. As a matter of fact, I would almost venture a guess and say that the Fox platform has more room in its engine compartment than that LX platform, just in looking at the thing. I mean, it's just kind of narrow, and it's, I don't know, even with a K member, a tubular K member, it would make it tough. I don't know, man. Maybe that could be part of the revision. Maybe they take the current displacement and just give it a 4-valve variant. It wouldn't be that difficult to do. But would the current platform even be able to house something that big? You gotta remember, the head would be about that wide. It would be about that tall with all the kit that comes with the cams and everything else. So, it'd be tough. It'd be real tough. Let's see. Oh, Jermaine's asking, Modern Muscle Extreme is trying to make a no-tune required camshafts. Why I asked earlier, I didn't believe it either. Look, man, if it's no tune required, think of it like this. No tune required. That's hysterical out of a camshaft. If it is in fact no tune required, it would not vary that far from stock specifications. Any movement with a tighter lobe separation angle would be a problem for the VE table. At least a slight problem, depending on how much tighter that lobe separation angle is. Now then, I'm going to take a bite out of an old Fox body trick back before they had mass air meters. And you could run 1.7s on a stock speed density cam and pick up about 15 horsepower because the stock cam sucked. The stock 392 cam is really good. If you were to take the stock 392 cam and maybe bump up duration by a few degrees and keep the same lobe separation angle, it would kind of do the same thing. And your VE table may not change that much, but you would also not pick up very much power in the process. I don't care what anybody says about advertised numbers. I can tell you straight away that you wouldn't pick up a ton with that type of a setup. So it would be interesting. Let's see. Oh, HU37 saying his first car was a Chrysler 300 with a 440. The only real fault of that engine was the valve guides and the seats and the seals. With 375 and 490 foot-pounds of torque, it wasn't a slouch by any means. Probably fried the tires off of it too. Venomous Garage saying the Pontiac Vibe was the most reliable car GM ever made because it was reskinned Toyota Matrix. I didn't know that. Minimus Garage saying 400Z looks like a great track car. I'm hoping that it will be, and I cannot wait to see that thing in the flesh. I will probably start giggling and cooing all over it like a schoolgirl. Hemi Head saying agree with Ken's comment. Would love to have an update with my Scat Packs U-Connect with a drag mode that adds some engine and transmission performance enhancements. That would bring a huge smile on my face. You know, in this day and age, you know, I've lamented the fact that we don't have direct connect, that we don't have factory support, hot rod parts, things like that. But let's roll that back just a second. I want to take that statement back for just a minute and talk about direct connect. How much more appropriate with the name of that thing, with the name of that old direct connection hot rod parts deal? How would that be cool the way it would apply today? Like, look, we can take your car, connect it directly to our database, upload the new U-Connect, upload a new mode for your car, drag mode, or whatever you want to have on there, and have that as your direct connection. Let's think of it a little bit differently. Instead of hot rod parts hardware, let's talk about hot rod parts software. And it doesn't even have to be hot rodding the engine. Nothing that would change the greenery of the engine, nothing that would change really anything, just the stuff that you have access to in the newer cars. Make that, I'm not saying give it to you for free, charge me for it, but give me that option as well. Since we're all this brotherhood, right? Bruh, hook me up. I want to see something cool like that. Why can't I have those neat features for my car? It's a good point. I love where you're going with that. Hey, Jermaine, thank you very much. Sean, too. Thank you all very much. Man, Jermaine, thank you so much for tonight, man. I appreciate that. It's asking, can you get performance gains from headers on a 5.7 with no tune? Yeah, sorta. Yeah, you can. So there is a table that you need to change, though, in the tune to get the most out of the long tubes. And that is a transport table. It's what it is. It's the table that tells the computer how long it takes for the exhaust pulse to go from firing and the exhaust valve opening up to the oxygen sensor, your primary oxygen sensor. There is a transfer function that tells the computer that exact moment to start looking for that pulse, and it happens in real time. It says all the time, but to slow it down, it knows that when it tells it to fire, the O2 is looking for what that air-fuel ratio is going to be, and it will know that function. If you change it and tell it to expect it later, it will work better in being able to more finely tune the air-fuel ratio. That being said, yeah, you can put headers on a 5.7 and get some power benefit out of it from that standpoint, but here's where you can get hurt with long tube headers or even short tube headers with a 5.7. Knock sensors. So here's the thing. Without changing the knock sensor sensitivity, you will start running into false knock left and right, which will mean that instead of gaining power from your added scavenging, you'll actually lose power because, that's right, you're pissing off the knock sensors. That extra noise that's created by those unshrouded tubes going right next to the knock sensor will make the knock sensor think that the car is pinging, knocking, or doing other nefarious things that it's actually not doing. So, a big mistake that guys will make will be to put the car or put the headers on the car and not get a tune, and they don't really feel any gains in power. The problem is they've got better scavenging, and the 5.7, especially the earlier 5.7s, have a different load profile, a little bit more friendly, I'll say, to running long tubes just in general. Now, long tubes will be a benefit to a 5.7 primarily because the 5.7 is running a log intake, and let's be honest, if you're going to upgrade the thing, you might as well put long tubes on it anyway. Get you a little bit better partial throttle torque and torque down low. Not so much horsepower up top, but you know, any little bit helps here. But that's what'll happen is that you'll have better scavenging because your stock manifolds are pretty bad, but when you put the headers on the car, it's going to piss off the knock sensors. It's going to think that it's knocking, it's going to yank timing. Let me give you a for instance. I'll put it to you like this. My old truck, and this one will probably do it too, I just never logged it. My old truck going down the highway, steady state, cruise control on, 65 miles an hour, no crosswinds, no nothing, just cruising down the highway. For really no apparent reason, would pull 3 degrees of timing just out of nowhere. The voltage would kind of freak out a little bit, and for whatever reason, it would just pull timing. A lot of the trucks are like that, but again, that's just like a 5.7 thing. So if you get long tubes, you're going to probably want to get a tune on the car, unfortunately. And that kind of sucks because it's expensive to do, but you need to do it anyway to get the most out of the long tubes anyway. So, I don't know. That's kind of how it's going to work out on that end. But thank you very much for the contributions tonight, man. I really do appreciate that. Thank you, too. Shawnee's checking out, saying, good night, B, everybody. Good night, man. Thanks, Brother Shawnee, saying good stuff tonight. Boosted, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Saying keep it up. Got the pair in the house. I like it. Venom saying 400Z looks like a great track car. Every street you drive that car on is going to be a track, my friend. HU37 said, I'd like to see FCA offer more performance packages for the RT. The package would include limited slip, more aggressive cam, upgraded intake. They have that. It's the SCAT packages. And you can do that right now for the RT. So, I mean, that's part of the SCAT packages. Mr. Blacktop saying, hey, B. Mason, I'm so glad you discussed Direct Connect. 2 words, see Tesla. Exactly. So the cool thing about Tesla is that they literally do that. You can get on-the-fly updates for your Tesla. It's like part of the whole sales thing. As they come out with new cool features, you get the new cool features. It just uploads while you're sleeping. So you wake up and, oh, wow, I've got a super hella pissed off haul-ass mode now. Woo! You know, they'll have these updates that come through, and it can be for anything under the sun, which makes those cars kind of neat, makes them fun to own. Let's see, Big Guys 45 saying interesting tips. Good, thank you very much. Alan's checking in saying, what I would like to see from FCA, new Magnum with the updated interior and engine options. You know, again, it's like when I was talking to the guys like 4 years ago at Mecum, and keep in mind, I had this guy, the cool thing about this is I had this guy's ear for, it was at least a couple of hours, and the Magnum was one of the cars that was like, look, you know, nobody bought them. A little bit, man, I love the Magnums too, and the bummer of the Magnum is that it didn't survive really into the refresh era. So that sucks, because could you imagine a freaking Hellcat Magnum? That'd be awesome. Timmy Head, thank you very much. We got the 717. I like it. The new horsepower rating. I love it. Saying thanks a bunch as always, and everybody have a great night, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution, my friend. I really do. Very much. So, updates. Well, let me just circle back around. We're just over 2 hours now. So basically, guys, if you haven't driven a 1320, find a buddy that's got one and buy him lunch. Sneak the car out while he's eating. You're gonna fall in love with the car. Like I say, Ray's 1320. I haven't had fun like that in a long. I've had fun like that since the last time I drove the Foxy, which was actually today, as a matter of fact, tune validated. But I haven't had fun like that in a long time. Such a neat car, and I'm really stoked that I had the opportunity to play with that thing for as long as we did. I mean, we were making hits on that thing for 2 hours. You know, stuff that I would like to see, obviously a revised Viper would be great. Bring back some of the heritage of the hot rod pickup. The TRX is cool, but let's see a 392 RT Warlock. In fact, why not Warlock? It fits in great with Hellcat, Red Eye, Demon, Warlock for the truck. Dude, could you imagine a freaking Hellcat-sized short bed pickup truck? Freaking Warlock on the side, black and gold like back in the day. Oh my God, that'd be fit. Oh my God, freak out, right? So yeah, something along those lines. And you know, as far as the SUV thing, whoa, what happened there? As far as the SUV thing goes, yeah, I don't really know what to think about the Grand Wagoneer just yet. But you know, if you like the Escalade, you'll like the Grand Wagoneer, from what I can tell. But my thing is the Jeep needs a V8. Just put a V8 in the thing, or a Turbo 6, or something along the lines to where it'll compete with that Bronco that's coming out. You know, and of course, something small, something that gets really good fuel economy, but is fun, raspy, kind of a, you know, pissed off little entry-level cool car. You know, it doesn't always have to appeal to the big bucks crowd. It needs to appeal to folks from an affordability standpoint, from a fuel economy standpoint, from a part of the club standpoint. And again, you know, cars like the Omni GLH, the Daytona Shelby, or the Shelby Daytona, the 600 Turbo, those were such neat cars back in the day. And to have something along that spirit, so to speak, no, the Spirit was a car too, something along those lines would do well, I think, to help further the brand. Because look, part of the brand direction that was spoken about during the Super Sport and the Hellcat Durango's release, Super Stock, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep doing that, was growing within the brand. Well, the problem is that every time the words growing within the brand are mentioned, we're only looking at the very top. I can't see that high when I'm standing down here. I want stuff that I can play with down here that is going to build brand loyalty. Build that brand loyalty early on, and it stays within that family for a long time to come. Like with me, first car was a Dodge, absolutely loved it. Car after that was a Jeep, absolutely loved that. You can see kind of where that's going. And of course, I've moved around and kind of circled around different brands, but to be honest with you, here we are. You know, and got the Hellcat sitting right back there. To take the place of something that special takes something even that much more special. To be the man, you got to beat the man, right? Well, that's kind of where we're at right now with the Hellcat. But that doesn't mean that the pinnacle is where you need to focus all the time. And that's really where I see Dodge and FCA kind of making that mistake. And that's why I wanted to talk about that 1320 so much. No, it's not 700 or whatever horsepower, but damn, if we didn't have so much fun with that car for such a long period of time. Again, two grown men acting like hoodlums, laughing our asses off, watching a Uconnect stream with that time slip, you know, the passengers just oh shit, you know, and we're just having so much fun with it. Fun in a way that you can't have with a Hellcat. You can't do those kind of things on the street with a Hellcat. And that's really where it matters the most. So for me, FCA, my main goal is this: stay brand loyal. And to stay brand loyal, I need the brand to be loyal to us. Not everybody has got 80 grand to spend on a pickup truck, but a lot of us have got 45, and that 392 fits just as easy as a freaking 5.7. Kobe's checking out, saying, good night, boys and girls. I am not too far behind you, brother. Saying, Hippie Ed saying, thanks a bunch as always. Everybody have a great night. Guys, I want to thank y'all very much for hanging out with me this evening. I love hanging out with you guys. Stay safe out there. Keep wearing your mask, if not for yourself, then for others. God bless. I will catch y'all on the next one, and that is a wrap. Adios.